When we acquired the company in the 80s, I think there were not many music labels in the country at all. The agreement at that time was such that we had to rechristen the name at some point in the early 2000s, which is when we came up with Saregama. We spent a few years actually digitizing the entire collection. That took a lot of time and effort for the team to do. We actually put everything together and we created one Carvaan dedicated to Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And that's when we gifted the first one of that to PMO. The people who want to consume this kind of music, they need a place to play it. They want to press one button and they want it to just go. The other part that we've actually started is a talent management vertical, which is basically artist management. So we want to sort of create artists who are not well known or anything, help them build their careers and create the space for them.
Hello and welcome to the Statesman Talk with me, Deepti J. Varma. Today we are being joined by Avarna Jain, who's been named as one of the top 100 women achievers of 2023 and also Viflo Young Entrepreneur of the Year 2024. Hi Avarna.
Hi Deepti.
She is the vice chairperson for Saregama, which is a part of the RP Sanjeev Goenka group. And she is now steering the legacy as well as the company into a digital future. And today we're going to talk about her work ethic, her work plans, and obviously philosophy.
Thank you so much for having me, Deepti.
Of course. Okay, so let's start with obviously the music company, which is a 130-year-old company, I believe, which was previously known as HMV.
Correct.
How did your family get into the music business and what are you doing today with the company?
So, our family has always been very, very culturally inclined, and music was a natural progression. I think at the time it was a combination of the interest in music and culture as well as a business decision to get into this space.
Okay.
When we acquired the company in the 80s, I think there were not many music labels in the country at all.
T-Series came in the 90s?
Much later.
Much later.
Much later. So there were not many music companies, and HMV at that time was known as the Gramophone Company of India, which existed in India. And I think
had the dog and the gramophone.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It was HMV stood for His Master's Voice.
Okay.
And I think the agreement at that time was such that we had to rechristen the name at some point in the early 2000s, which is when we came up with Saregama. We wanted it to be universal, reflect music, and sort of stretch across languages as well, because our interests were not only in Hindi as is commonly perceived, it was across the country in different languages as well.
The label owns 50% of recorded Indian music ever. Was it difficult to preserve that music or in what state were these records available in?
So at that time, I think when we acquired the company, the state of the music was actually okay because that was the format in which it was currently being used. In the 80s, records, vinyls were a thing. Then came the cassettes, then came the CDs. So the actual preservation had to happen as time went along. Yes, as time went along. And now we spent a few years actually digitizing the entire collection. That took a lot of time and effort for the team to do because it was, cataloging in a physical format is very different from cataloging digitally.
Yeah.
And what happens when you start cataloging digitally, you want to suddenly pick a genre and say, listen, I want songs like it's raining outside. I want songs like Barish Ki Gaane, right? But when you were cataloging physically, to find that was dependent on the knowledge of, also knowledge of a few people, artists who specialized in that genre. But if you had like a one-hit wonder or one person who did one great Barish song, you may
wouldn't be in this catalog.
You may not be able to find it.
Yeah.
But after digitizing the entire catalog, finding that.
So now it's according to search words?
It's all kinds. You give us your requirement and we will give you a whole host of things that actually fit that requirement. So whether it is a Barish song, whether it is a Shadi song, whether it is anything, you tell us you want a happy song, you want a happy but sober, you want a sad but, noisy.
Mood.
Whatever you tell us, we can sort of dissect the catalog and give you the entire repertoire that exists with us that fits that. So actually we use a lot of data analytics today to sort of, come up with all of this.
You also came up with this product, Karma, which became like a breakthrough product for your company. How did you think of that?
There had been many years that we've been contemplating, and I was in college in the early 2000s, 2008. And every time I would come back, we would have this discussion that what do we do with this repertoire of music we're sitting on? At that time, digitization was just about taking off. You had the MP3 versions of the songs and MP3 players. But the limit on that was 20 songs or 30 songs. Then came the iPod, revolutionary product.
I remember that part.
We tried all kinds of things. We made box sets with CDs. We made USBs of all the different, the different singers.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad walking in saying that, listen, you USB though you've made, but now where do I play it?
Yeah.
What we hadn't thought of was that, okay, I'm a college-going student, or everyone who's in their teenage years or 20s has a laptop or a device. But a 50-year-old at that time didn't really have a device of their own. So he was struggling with where do we play? And that's what got us thinking that, listen, the people who want to consume this kind of music, right?
Also need like a personal mobile
They need a place to play it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to choose their songs. They don't want to choose A, B, C, D. They want to press one button and they want it to just go. So we did a very extensive market research at that time. It lasted a little over a year actually, to understand where the market gap was. And the startling revelation for us was people of that age did not want choice. They wanted convenience. They wanted an autoplay almost.
Okay.
Right? So this is a bit talking.
And they wanted technology that didn't intimidate them.
They did not want technology.
Yeah.
So we in this
simple
fast digitizing
radio. Yeah.
Absolutely fast digitizing world in 2014, 13, 14, 15. Everything is going digital. You have all your OTT platforms coming into being. People are like, oh, we're doing Spotify, JioSaavn, this, that, and the other, Ghana, blah, blah, blah. And we're coming up with this retro-looking physical product.
Radio, almost like a...
Yes, like a radio. And it's a physical product. People, I think, must have, I don't know if they did, but I'm assuming they thought we were crazy at that time. But as luck would have it, and the research, of course, was, true to its nature. It did reflect what the people wanted, and it was, it did well for us at that time.
And now the product, has it plateaued?
So
Would you come up with another version for it?
We keep coming up with different versions. So what started off as just one big collection of old Indian music, then we broke it up by artists. So we have Carvaan minis that come. So you'll have a Lata Mangeshkar special or an R.D. Burman.
And there's one for kids as well.
Yes, there's one for kids. And then we came up with one which is a Carvaan karaoke. So you press a button, the screen pops up. You have two mics and two people can sing along. The lyrics come, the music comes, and you can actually sing along your favorites.
Road trips,
So you had all kinds of variants. So we've been coming up with many, many variants over the years as the need, we see the gaps in the market. So we've been coming up with many, many variants.
And if I remember correctly, you gifted one to PM Modi as well.
Yes, we did.
Tell us about that experience. What was it?
So, as I said, we were sitting on this repertoire of great music. Then we realized we're not only sitting on a repertoire of great music, but a large number of patriotic songs sung by stalwarts like Lata Mangeshkar and all of those. And also we had in our repertoire a lot of patriotic speeches that were made by key political figures, people from the army and things like that of the time. That was part of our repertoire. And, it was just there. People, didn't even know about it. So we actually put everything together and we created one Carvaan dedicated to Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, when India, was 75 years of independence. And that's when we gifted the first one of that to PM Modi.
How was your meeting? Did his knowledge of music surprise you?
I don't know about knowledge of music, but knowledge of everything else was very, very, not surprising really, but impressive. And I was blown by the kind of knowledge, charisma, atmosphere, ambience. I mean, the person he is, I was blown away.
Also, now coming back to the digitizing part of what you're doing with your legacy, how do you keep up? Like, what is your immediate plan right now? What do you think needs to be done in the music space?
So Saregama for many years, as you yourself mentioned, enjoyed this pole position in the music industry. Over the years, I think I maybe lost that pole position for a while, and I think. With consistent efforts in the last few years, I think we've regained that. We're, a force to reckon with in the industry. We're an important player, and I think sort of achieving that has been a large part of our focus. Because
what are the challenges? Like with so many different platforms coming for music, how does one artist get his revenue? Like, how do you make sure that the chain follows? Is there
No,
a
there
lot of
are
challenges?
not really. It's a very set system,
Set system?
honestly, where there's a certain percentage that goes to the artist, to
Mhm.
everyone who's involved.
Mhm.
It's a very transparent and fair system, and I think everyone in the industry pretty much follows that.
Okay.
So there's
So that's on autopilot.
pretty much.
Okay. And what about this Pocket Aces that you've acquired recently?
So
It's a digital influencer.
it is
Like it's got digital influencers in it. It's a talent management. What is it?
So Pocket Aces is a digital talent management company.
Okay.
To put it very simply, it manages about 130 influencers. I think the reason we sort of thought and saw value in Pocket Aces is that when we acquire music for any films or any entertainment space, we need to market that. And digital marketing plays a very, very important role in what we do. And Pocket Aces then becomes a very natural extension.
Influencer marketing, especially.
Exactly. So Pocket Aces as influencer marketing becomes a very important and integral part.
Where is the company from?
It's in Bombay.
Originally.
Bombay.
It's a Bombay-based company.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's an Indian company.
It's an Indian company. Yeah, absolutely.
So it already had these some digital
Yes, it was a
people
very
on
young
board.
company. It was not a very old company, just 3-4 years old. So we acquired it when it was very young, and we plan to grow it and take it forward. I think there's a lot of scope for this.
And you were earlier mentioning that how what is the business model? Like, how do you make revenue of these people, and how do you bring them revenue?
So it's a multi-pronged approach in a way. The way I think Aditi and the rest of the team had envisioned this is pretty much the way we're taking it forward, where they actually tap into these influencers who exist. And some of them they create also, they train them, because a lot of influencers are there, but they don't have the how do you present yourself on screen? What do you say? What do you do? Is the lighting good? How do you, all of that.
Yeah.
And so
they have good content, but they don't have the
not all of them do, right? So you give them that aspect of the training. How do you optimize, whether it's search engine optimization, whether it is optimization of the algorithms and all of that in the different.
So is it a lot of tier 2 city people?
It is a mix. It's a mix. It's a mix of tier 1 and tier 2. Very often you wouldn't even realize you'll be seeing a certain influencer, and then if you go back and check, you're like, oh, this one is a Pocket Aces influencer. Yeah. But the other part that is very important for us actually is that Pocket Aces has a few channels that they run on social media, like Filter Copy and Gobble, and they have a lot of influence. So they not only use them to promote and use their influencers on those channels, but they also create content, so short form content for consumption on like an Instagram, for example.
You are also the chairperson for the lifestyle wing of the RP SG group. And under that, you are taking over some magazines, like the men's magazine Esquire is coming, as well as Hollywood Reporter.
That's right.
Why is print still an important, what role does print still play in the media content creation today?
So, I think, again, we've made a pretty bold move by bringing in these print magazines in a highly digitized world, like Carvaan was. But I think there is a certain gravitas and credibility that a print product brings to the picture. Today, in a world of, the world of Instagram, Twitter, all of these social media sort of platforms, everybody can put out their opinion, which is great, right? It gives you an opportunity to speak your mind. But as the print product, what it does is sifts through all these opinions and gives you almost like the credible version, the researched version that a journalist can bring you. It'll give you a more nuanced version of all the thoughts. And that's...
Do you think it still has that editorial integrity, a lot of these platforms?
I think it definitely does. If you look at Esquire, you look at Hollywood Reporter, these are all brands that are close to 100 years. And honestly, you can't survive an entire century without having credibility attached to your name. So I think these two brands, one of the main reasons we brought them in is because of the credibility that they hold.
And why a men's magazine? Do you think it's a big market?
I think it's an exploding market in India. Honestly, I think we're at the cusp where men are just about discovering I don't know if it's the luxuries, but the all the different things that are available to them and the interest that men have, they're almost embracing it.
Yeah.
You know, a man 20 years ago might have been worried about his skin, but he would have been worried talking about it.
Yeah.
Today, men are embracing it. And I think it's an opportune time to get into a men's magazine.
And the Hollywood Reporter, which is like a trade magazine.
It in the US, it is predominantly a trade magazine. In India, the way we're looking at it is more like a unifier of sorts. We wanted to have an industry voice where we look at the entertainment industry in India as a whole. We don't want to break it up into, you know, Bollywood being separate or Lollywood or
Do you
Tollywood.
think the name would alienate people like the Hollywood Reporter?
Not really. See, it's Hollywood Reporter India.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is, or the way we all see it actually within the group, is that we want to use it as a unifier of all the woods, which, you know, goes beyond today, beyond
Bollywood.
No, not just Bollywood, goes beyond films. Because today, if you look at the OTT segment, right, those are as important in terms of entertainment for a layperson, if not more, as a film. Cricket is as important, or soccer is as important, or, you know, sporting, basically the sporting industry is as important as an entertainment factor for the people.
And also the celebrities equally,
absolutely,
their power.
100%. So all kinds of things are going to come into this entertainment space which earlier was dominated by films. Today, films are very important. Yes, you know, like you look at Bollywood, you look at the South, you look at the way South Indian cinema is doing. But then if you look at Indian television, right, you have these shows that have been running for like 14 years, 15 years. How are they doing it? You know, it's you're entertaining people every single day, 5 days a week for 15 years. It's insane. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there are these shows that have done 4,000 episodes.
So what will your audience be like? Because clearly the audience for all these genres is very different.
So it's going to be a very varied audience, but an audience that is just looking for information on entertainment. So it could be, somebody could be a film buff, but it could be somebody who just consumes Indian television the way it is. It could be somebody who only consumes OTT platforms. It could be somebody who only consumes sporting events. But all entertainment will be housed under this.
And it's a physical copy?
Yes, it will have. I mean, of course, there will be digital versions. Yes, subscription based. There will be digital versions as well, but there will be a print version, 100%.
And talking about OTT, you're also foraying into cinema, like movies for OTT?
So we make, under Saregama, we have a brand called Udly, which actually makes films and OTT shows. So we have a little over 18 shows.
Are you part of that?
Yes, absolutely. So these films and shows, I mean, I don't act in any of them, obviously. But the films and shows are on OTT, different OTT platforms. Some of them have trended #1 for many weeks on like Netflix, for example. There was one called Akione, which was very different from the usual that you see, but it was trending #1 for many days. There was one called Chaman Bahar. There was one called Hamid, which got a national award. There was one called Agra that got a 5-minute long standing ovation at the Cannes Film Festival. So it's a lot of.
How do you put your weight behind a project that comes to you?
We have, like I said in the beginning, data analytics plays a huge role. So we have a very, very robust data analytics team that actually helps us put together a model, and it's an ever evolving model based on which we sort of take decisions. We're trying our best to. I don't know if you can take out the entire human element from this.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what about the art
we're trying to remove that as much as we can and come up, as close to a successful formula as possible. I know human element will always play a role, but then
has AI already entered your boardrooms?
Well, sort of.
Yeah,
sort of. It's actually in the sense that suppose today I'm making the decisions, and hypothetically, if I'm the only one making it and I'm making good decisions. Yeah. What happens tomorrow when I'm not there, right? Yeah. That's why you want to remove the human element and bring in a model in some way that can actually help you, continue the show even if you're not around.
And you're doing different talent management also, as it's under Pocket Aces only.
No, so Pocket Aces is one part.
That's for digital influencers.
Yeah, just digital influencers. The other part that we've actually started is a talent management vertical, which is basically artist management. So we want to sort of create artists who are not well known or anything and help them build their careers and create the space for them.
So it's really interesting because like your family background has got nothing to do with arts and cinema, except for the music bit. But now the way that you've entered into this field and it's spilling over from one, it's from talent to film. So you think it's refreshing that new voices are coming into the space?
It's very refreshing. It's also an ever changing space. This whole media space is changing so drastically, whether you look at the print part of it, whether you look at the films part of it. We were speaking earlier
Yeah.
about how consumption patterns
Because I
have
think 30
changed.
years ago, no usual business house would have thought that they'll get into films in some way. It's usually the filmy families that continued the
I think that's one of the
process.
reasons we got into the music part of it, because that's not necessarily the entire
Film
glamour
part of
and
it,
film
yeah,
part of
yeah.
it, which is great, but it's also, I think that would have to be your main business in a way if you were getting into that space. But I think the culture part is what attracted us more.
Yeah.
And music is such an inherent part of Indian society.
And now the business part of it attracts you more?
Oh, I think it's a great mix.
Yeah.
It's the business part makes sense, and this part is the fun part. So it's a great blend.
It's a great blend.
It's an absolutely great blend.
And we obviously have to talk about work-life balance. As much as I would hate to ask a mother this question,
No, but it's true.
But moms can never unwire their mind. How do you do it? You have kids at home. What is your usual day like? How do you?
It's a constant balancing act.
Yeah.
You're a mom, this. You can never spend too much time with your kids.
Yeah.
They always want more, and they should, and why not? And I think every moment that I can...
Because you're taking on more and more work, as I can see.
Well, I am a little bit, but I'm also...
Have you learned to juggle better?
I think I have. I think I really have. I think it's also about the art of delegation. So I think, so step one is getting good people. Honestly, you need a great team
village
to be able to function well. So having a great team is very important, and I think I can say it very happily, very proudly that I have a great team that I rely on, both at Saregama and where the publications are concerned.
Do you have a lot of women?
I do, actually. There's a lot of women, a lot of the key roles. A lot of our editors are women, and we have a lot of...
Do you make a conscious decision to get a woman voice in?
I think initially it played on my mind. I would consider it very seriously, but I think now when I meet people, it is an automatic blend. It's not
gendered.
You don't have to go searching for a particular gender, because it comes to you. The talent is such that honestly sometimes it's actually quite easy.
Yeah. And you grew up in Calcutta.
Yes, I did.
And when did you move to Delhi?
I moved to Delhi in 2010, actually, when I got married.
Has it been a big change for you, or now Delhi's home?
Delhi is definitely home now. Calcutta will always be home. It will always have a soft spot. But I've lived here now for 15 years almost. So Delhi is...
And you went to UPenn after studying in Calcutta at Loreto?
Yes, I went to Loreto till class 10, and then La Martiniere after that. Then I went to UPenn. I did a communications major.
Which educational institution has like the most impact on your business philosophy?
Oh, that's a very tough
one. And life philosophy.
Very tough one. Honestly, I think at some level, I think like a very idealistic, I think a very idealistic world should exist, which is what my years in my first school taught me, Loreto House, because they wanted you to be this ideal person in this ideal world. That is the model they were after. Then you got thrown into, from a complete convent, perfect environment sort of a thing, into La Martiniere.
Purest environment.
Yes, which was, very different. It was much more about the real world. And you suddenly realize, okay.
Hustle.
Yes, the real world is not really like this.
Yeah.
Which is a great learning for me at a very young age, I think. And then, of course, you went to college. And college was a great opportunity because, you went from a small place like Calcutta, and then you went to UPenn, which had these super, super, super smart people from across the world. And you're thrown in with all these geniuses, okay? And you have to make it work.
What did you study? Sorry,
I studied communication. So there's a college there called the Annenberg School, which is where I studied communication. And honestly, at that time, I didn't know that I would get into publishing or media. It was a vague thought in your mind, but not... So luck would have it, life comes full circle. You studied this and you end up here. So it was great. And that's when you learned that, listen, there are these really smart people who have diabolically opposite views to you.
Yeah.
But
they coexist.
But they're just as valid as yours, and sometimes even
and you
more
learn
valid.
To respect and tolerate.
And that was my biggest learning from college when I came back, and to respect other people's opinion. I think what I value today the most is dissent. Honestly, if you have a differing opinion from
That's
me.
what I was going to ask. Like, because now you're creating so much content and you're managing so much content. Does your own political leaning get in the way ever, or you let everyone do their own thing?
It's like I say, it's all about logic. Either I will convince you with mine, or you will convince me with yours. And if you have a logic,
is there any time in an embargo in anything that anybody cannot be doing this?
No. I mean, I would say.
Do you get legal notices from anybody you manage?
I think every business that runs in India gets something or the other, right? So that's part and parcel of the game.
Especially digital influencers, they have a lot of free speech and free voice online. So does your company ever get involved in telling them that, they shouldn't go into
I think the way I think freedom of speech is very important. They have to be able to speak their minds. But at the same time, you don't want to be hurting other people, right? I don't want to be, outwardly rude or mean or anything like that. So that's not something that we believe in as a philosophy of the group. While we're very empathetic and we understand that people have different opinions, but there's a way to express an opinion. It's not about being brash and loud and just saying it for the sake of saying it. There has to be a reason.
There would be a team looking at that as well.
No, I think it's just the ethos of the group. So if you're part of the group, you would
have a certain guideline.
You would imbibe that ethos, because it is, if you have a logic to what you're saying, sure, go ahead and say it. But if you don't have a logic, don't just say it for the sake of saying it. We're not creating sensation just for the sake of it.
Just for numbers.
Yes, absolutely. That's not something we believe in.
Yeah, because that's going to be an ambiguous space.
Absolutely. Then honestly, there's no credibility. If I'm going to harp on the fact that we want to be credible, we want to have a certain gravitas, a certain maturity to what we are doing, this is completely the opposite of that.
And also, you do want to somewhere encourage agency in young people also.
100%.
So it's like a thin line that you have to walk.
Absolutely. It's a tightrope, but it's okay. I think anyone in this space will have to deal with that.
Will have to deal with that. All right. Thank you, Avarna. Thank you for your time today. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank you
so much. And all the
much.
best for all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Deepti. This was absolutely wonderful. And thank you for thinking of me.
If you liked the episode, do not forget to share it. And also like, share and subscribe to all our social media channels. They are listed below.